I've got a
Okay.
question here from a
Yes.
friend of mine. Yeah, he was curious about your classical training as to what
Yes.
that entailed.
8.5 years of opera at school. I mean, I didn't go to like a special opera school, but the school that I went to had training for district chorus and chorus. And I was taught opera. And one of the things that I was taught was to sing opera. And because I had such a loud voice already, or I should say, I was able to project as a child without knowing that that's what any of that is. It's just that it's the 60s and my parents had this really cool Pioneer stereo, and it came with a microphone, and then you could plug the microphone in and sing to the radio. So what am I going to do all day? Do that. So I learned to project, but I didn't know that I didn't know that I could or whatever. And then later in school, they're like, oh, you have the kind of a diaphragm that would be good for opera. So they had me study opera, and I sang some operas like Caro Mio Ben, Italian opera pieces, as a kid, in, state chorus, and sort of competitively. I never cared about that. I just like singing. I'm not good at competition. I don't give a shit, but whatever. Like, I don't think I even won anything ever, because when I was doing this, I was a first soprano. And then when I turned 14, my voice changed like a boy. And I got the hoarse voice, everything. And I went from a first soprano within a couple months to an alto tenor, which is what I still am. But I can sing really high still, but not like I did when I first was. Yeah. And so then anyway, that knocked me down some pegs for soprano. And then, yeah, so whatever. But that's the training I have. It just really helped me to project. But it also, the dynamics helped. To me, that's why Nuclear Death is better than a lot of bands from that thing as far as death metal, because I'm a singer for real. So I was using that training with the growl along with it. So it's not just me going rah, 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 like a lot of these dudes were doing. They're just doing it randomly and they're just doing it. But with me, there was a finesse to it because I'm still a singer. So there was a finesse to what I was doing. And that's cool, because I didn't know any of this until now. If I analyze it, I can say it. But back then I didn't know. I just did what I did.
A lot of people already know about the nuclear death stuff, so I don't really want to go too much into that. And I'm sure you've
Oh,
had a
darn.
million
Thank you so
questions.
much. I don't want to either. No, it's okay. You can do it. You can ask whatever you want. It's all good.
I only want to ask about the last two albums. How do you say the album Planet?
The planet Cachexial. If you look up the word Cachexia, because it's from a real word, and that's where I got it from. Like a lot of, like Zyralia, I just made that word up. I do that a lot. I'm kind of good at making shit up and making it sound real. But like the forest of Bayat, that's something I made up, the word Bayat. But just trying to be cool and neat. But Cachexial is from the word Cachexia, and I just thought it was a kind of a cool idea to put an L and then call it that. Because originally I was going to call the album Slumber Blood after the story, but then Steve was like, you should call it something else, and then that can be the because it was his idea to make music to it. I just wrote the story because we were on a kind of fucking crystal meth at that time, and I finally did my Philip K. Dick, and I started tap 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 tap, and I finally wrote my 18 page novella that I thought of ever since I was a kid. And then he thought we should make a soundtrack to this, and I said, oh, all right. And then that's how we decided to make the Planet Cachexial.
How did that actually happen? After that, hey, let's do it and stuff. What, like you guys did everything together, or you did your part, he did his part?
See, we were still totally madly in love at that point, thank goodness. So we were still a super couple. And the thing is we had moved into an apartment together with our cats, and we were right across the street from a library. And I started getting free like documentaries about artists, because I love reading. My whole favorite thing to read are biographies and autobiographies of other musicians and artists of any stripe. And I started realizing that I felt like we needed to be artists where we stopped listening to the radio, we stopped listening to me, or we never watch TV unless it was a film, and we shut ourselves away into the apartment, did a bunch of crystal meth, because that's what Philip K. Dick would do. And I loved he's an author that I love. So I was like, he was doing a bunch of meth and we were on drugs, but we were on drugs in a good way. And all I would do all day was work on poetry and he would work on music, and we would write and write and write. And then I would draw. That was the other thing. Like, I was getting heavily influenced by Salvador Dali. And so that's where all that's where all the artwork came from. The Planet Cachexial was me studying his work. And I thought, I'm going to make this book and illustrate it. And it's something I've always wanted to do. And so that's exactly what I did. And we sat there, he and I, in our studio apartment, and all we did was sit there on the floor with our guitars and make the album. Now, granted, I wrote almost all of the songs myself on the guitar. And then, of course,
Yeah.
he's a multi-instrumentalist. So he would write bass parts to it, because he played most of the bass. I didn't want to play bass again. I was like, oh, I'm so sick of bass. And he's better. He's a drummer,
Yeah.
and he's a better bass player anyway. So I said, you play bass. I don't want to do it. He said, okay. And then we started incorporating things. I was like, let's get experimental. And my parents had just came home from Chicago, and they bought us a didgeridoo. And he also used to play trumpet. So he got a trumpet, a didgeridoo. There's congas, bongos, Kenyan finger piano. And we just had all these instruments on there for war dance and stuff. And yeah, we went crazy. It was like, it's what I always wanted to make. It's the Nuclear Death album that I've always wanted to make. We finally made it. It's like my masterpiece. Like, I've always said that it's my favorite Nuclear Death album. It's so great. And it's the cool thing of me not singing in English or anything was cool. Like, making the voices for the creatures. And, I was going to narrate it, but I decided not to. And then, I thought we'd save that for the movie. Then the idea was, and I still want to do this, is I wanted to make an animated feature film where I would have someone animate my artwork, and it would be like the movie, Heavy Metal, that movie, like Heavy Metal, or Fire and Ice, or The Wall, which is my favorite movie of all time, and probably my top favorite album, one of them of all time, like that, where they use Gerald Scarf's, beautiful artwork to incorporate into the music. That's what I was doing when I wrote The Planet Cachexial. It just never got to the movie. So we made the book instead. So, because I didn't have any money, I was like, I want to make the movie, but we can't. Like, now, can you imagine with the CGI? Oh my God, it'd be great. But yeah, that's how that came about. It was literally, and it wasn't because of drugs. It's just, we were on this kick where, you're not sleeping a lot. And because I have that, I mean, look at me now. It seems like I'm on shit, but I'm not. This is just me, natural. I don't do caffeine. This is Lori chemistry right here. And wide awake. And yeah, and like I said, he, that sexy picture everybody likes to post of me with the upside down cross and the blood, that was that era. He shot pictures of me. We'd walk around naked all day. I mean, that we were like we wanted to be artists. Like, we were like, we're going to just do whatever we want. And we were like, we never talked to anybody. We talked to some friends, but for the most part, we just kept all in that apartment and just did nothing but art. I mean, it worked out great. It worked out great until it didn't, you know what I mean? And then by the time we actually recorded it, we weren't on drugs anymore. That was the other cool thing about it. We eventually got out of that apartment and into his dad built us a house on the new property he bought. And we moved into that, made a studio in there. And by the time that we went to record it in a recording studio, we were also no longer on drugs. So that kind of worked too. It was sort of like, okay, that was then and this is now. And, we're over it. So let's make the album. Let's go ahead and record it professionally now. Because we had the 8-track, Tascam 8-track. That's what we record everything on. And so we would do it these hours of, I have all of them, by the way. I have all of that. I got to come away from the relationship with all of that shit. So all the rehearsals, and they were all done in the apartment. And when we couldn't do it in the apartment, 'cause it was a studio apartment, we go to his parents' house and do it at their house. And so, eventually that's just how it was, it's just like, and then when we went to the studio, we were all prepared, and it was very easy to do. It didn't take it. I mean, it took us 2 days, I think, to record them, maybe a couple days. And then there was some mixing, and yeah, there's something about it. Just like, when I hear it, it's just like, this is what I was looking for. Like, to me, I wanted it to be like classical music, but then not like here's Lori's version of composing a classical piece, because that's what I was thinking when I was doing it. And the soundtrack, or a soundtrack to a scoring, and I don't read music, or I can kind of read music, but I cannot write it. I don't do music theory. Everything is by ear. So it's not like, but that's why the inside has the hand, the corpse hand with the whatever the thing is called, thing that when you do orchestration, I forgot what the thing is called, but that's why it's there.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why, because that was the idea, was for people to think that this is a composed piece of work. So it's not just songs, I mean, obviously, that. And I got to listen to it on acid. Several years later, I introduced to a friend of mine, and he had acid, and I didn't do that anymore. I mean, that was like 20s, like that. But anyway, he had some really good acid, and I thought, I got to find out what this is like on acid. It was not a good idea. So it was totally freaking me out. He put a strobe light on in his room, and we just listened to it in the dark. Like I told people, I always used to say, listen to this in the dark after you read the story. And that was bad. It gave me nightmares, which is funny because I don't get nightmares from stuff like that, especially my own shit. Why the hell would that give me nightmares? But it did. It was like weird. Yeah, never again. Not a good idea.
I'm gonna go on to the next one.
Oh yes, my swan song. Yeah.
At this point in time, to me anyway, you've gone full-blown punk. How was that reacted to by people, if you get what I'm saying?
The way I work is I never, ever, ever will make the same record twice. I can't even do that. And plus, since I love Miles Davis, I've always known that you just have to keep evolving. So by the time I made that record, because that record was like 4 or so years after Cachexial, and see, by that time, Steve and I were, so I was going to break up with him anyway and leave him. And I knew that, but I also wanted to dissolve the band because he had kind of lost interest. He kind of got disillusioned, and then he got back on drugs. And see, we weren't doing drugs anymore. I mean, I was totally clean. I was working out. I was like not going to be living with a drug addict again. It's like, no, we want to, that's over. But he started doing drugs again. And so we were kind of at odds because, I mean, I wasn't going to tell him what to do, but I just thought, no, I don't want to live with a drug addict again. We're both clean. This sucks. And he would leave the house for days on end so he could go do it. And I started writing on my own because that album was completely written by me, except for Shoot. He did write that instrumental himself because he's an amazing musician. But it was mainly me. It's all metaphorical. It's me leaving him. It's also me fantasizing about other people, even though they're people I don't know. Like Electric Space Boy is about my first orgasm, which was listening to Ziggy Stardust when I was 15 years old. So that's what that one's about. And I wrote it for David Bowie, and with him in mind when I wrote that song, Electric Space Boy, and stuff like that. Like it was like Eyes Closed, the Sin. That one, that's another one. That's about, me and Steve having sex, but me not wanting to have sex with him. So at that time I just got back into listening to music on the radio, and I found out there was people named 9 Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson. I was like, wow, who are these people? And I got really into Marilyn Manson, and I fell in love with him. So I wrote the song about him. So every time I would close my eyes and Steve was having sex with me, so I didn't have to think about him, I would think of Marilyn Manson, and then that way it'd be okay. And I wouldn't have to think about it. And that's what that song's about. So it's like, it's all me reclaiming myself as a woman. It was like, I've been kind of robbed of my femininity with Nuclear Death. I had to be tougher than all the boys, and it was like,
yeah,
I wanted to be a woman again, and I wanted to feel like a woman again. And I didn't, that it's like, I felt like I was like, sort of like asexual. And I was like, no, I'm a girl, and I'm a woman, and I need to claim my power. And although Steve originally was a feminist, he had kind of gotten sexist over the years. And that was the other problem, is that he started to kind of keep me down. He wanted to kind of keep, kind of act like we're already married. Not that I'd ever marry anyway, because I don't believe marriage, but I'm just saying, like, we were together for 13 years. So it kind of felt like he didn't want me to have fun at all. And I don't mean going out with other people or anything like that. I just mean, I'm still hungry for music. And he was sort of like, so when I wrote it by myself. A lot of that was just written. And then I kind of metaphorically, I wasn't ready to be really honest yet. But so I didn't want him to know what I was writing, but he knew anyway, because he's Steve and he's very intuitive. So he kind of knew what I was writing about in there, But and Haunted Nimbus, that's about my grandfather and his death, like stuff like that. I was just starting to kind of be autobiographical. It's my first autobiographical record, but it's not really obvious yet. But yeah, the influences at that time, I was listening. I just got into 9 Inch Nails. I just got into Marilyn Manson. I couldn't believe what I was hearing because I had no idea these people were on the radio. Nirvana, Kurt Cobain was already dead. I had just got into Nirvana. I got into Hole. I got into Babes in Toyland. And I was like, wow, these people are awesome. And so I was kind of taking that female rage. And, you know, because even Nirvana was a very, I mean, Kurt wrote like a woman, as far as I'm concerned. He wrote very, very sensitive and very almost from a feminist point of view, or very much from. So I got that into me. And that's where that, like you're saying, that influence comes from, is that feeling of like, you can't hold me down anymore. You know, I thought, I don't want to be your wife. I don't want to sit here and not play music anymore. And he also didn't want to play music anymore. He didn't want to. The reason we never toured those records is because of him. He didn't think anybody cared. So we never toured Planet Cachexial, and we never toured Harmony Drinks Me, because as far as he was concerned, nobody cares. And at that time, since the internet was too new and all that stuff, as far as anything goes, I had no leg to stand on to think that anyone did know who we were anymore. So I kind of believed him. That's how that went. I knew it was going to be the last Nuclear Death record. And I had met a person that was 18 years younger than me, this kid, that he was really influential in turning me on to how important the internet is, which Steve again was like, that's stupid. Nobody likes computers. I'm like, I don't know. He's saying it's, you know, his father works for Boeing and he's had a computer since he was 3 years old. And he seems to think that I should probably learn how to use one. He's like, no, that's stupid. Well, thank goodness I know how to use a computer. So you know what? He was right. You know, stuff like that. He's kind of old buddy daddy. You know, I just got real tired of he's acting like he was a 60-year-old man. And I'm like, oh, that's what those influences kind of happened, is because I turned the radio on and I'm like, what's a Smashing Pumpkin anyway? You know, it's like, it was that era. And I was like, who are these people? And what's this Soundgarden shit? You know, I just didn't understand. So it was all new to me and I was all impressed, like, ooh, so it just kind of filtered in. Alice in Chains, you know, all that stuff.
Is there a reason why you guys kept the last two albums under the ND banner rather than doing a new one?
Because they're Nuclear Death. They really are. I mean, Nuclear Death made them. And to me, they're still brutal. I mean, to me, they're still brutal in their own way, especially because I know what was going on. Especially, I mean, Planet Cachexial is definitely Nuclear Death. It's like I said, it's the Nuclear Death album I kept trying to make, but just couldn't find the right people to make it yet. And I wasn't good enough of a musician yet to make it until that time frame. Phil and Joel could have never made the Planet Cachexial with me. They were way too, well, Joel might have, because he's a little bit more open-minded, but Phil is so closed-minded, would never happen. But that's okay. I'm a better guitar player than he is anyway. But yeah, that I don't know. But yeah, that it just. But as far as harmony goes, I actually thought that was kind of cool what I did, because anybody that knows me as a female, I mean, as a female singer, I thought this is the most female Nuclear Death album there is. Because I'm speaking from a woman's point of view, which I never did. Remember, Phil wrote most of the lyrics before, most of them. So he's speaking from a male point of view, and I played a male for years. I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay being the guy, that's fine. Or being the observer, or the narrator, or the creature, or whatever. But even after that, when I started writing the lyrics, I still was writing from a male point of view. I didn't write from it was either I was writing from a killer point of view, a psycho, whatever. Planet Cachexial, those are creatures. They're alien. So that's different. They're not male. They're not female. We don't know. They're whatever they are. Mother Chaos, whatever. But harmony was me being me, and how do I feel now? And I was reading all kinds of poetry, like everything from Sappho, Ezra Pound to Patti Smith to Jim Morrison, like tons of poetry, and just filtering that all into my lyrics, because I also want to be a better songwriter. It's like, I need to be a better songwriter. It's time to get out of the Nuclear Death thing and start writing, because I've been a writer since I was a kid. And I wanted to show that, you know, I'm not just a person that writes about horror stuff or whatever. So yeah, that was the other thing, is to kind of show my range, that I'm a good poet, or hopefully a good writer. And so that was my first attempt at being poetic in that setting. But I knew that was going to be the last one anyway. Like I said, it was like the goodbye record. And, you know, I was really in love with Arthur Rimbaud and Baudelaire and fuck, you know, and so it was like listening to all these people and then putting that into it. It was just sort of, you know, that's why if you look in the inside, I'm dressed as a witch, because I am a witch, but I mean, I'm dressed very witchy. And then I had him kind of put on a velvet jacket and kind of try to look sort of like he's a writer or a poet, even though I'm the one that wrote the lyrics, just to kind of give that flavor to the album as far as the photos and the inside go. Steve and I lived together for 13 years, and we've been friends for 25 years because he was like 4 years younger than me. So, I met him when he was like a kid coming to our shows and shit. But I knew it was over, and it just felt like that was the right time to dissolve Nuclear Death. So I thought, okay, this is perfect. I'm going to leave him, break up with him, and then I'm going to dissolve my band, and then I'm going to go out solo. And then I can just do whatever I want. And then that kid that I met turned out to be a friend of mine. He became a friend that I ended up living with on and off for years. He's gay, so he turned me into that world, which was neat for him to to introduce me to the world of gay. And that was cool too, because that was a whole new audience. When I was playing live, we go out and play these things called internet cafes. And I don't know if they have those anymore, but they used to. And there was this one called Aosis that used to have live bands. And I would go there and I would play. And again, he was introducing me to that other the World Wide Web and all this other shit. Like, he's the one that made the cover for Harmony. Like, I made it, like I created it, but he's the one that graphically designed it for us, Dalton. So it was like, yeah. So it was like meeting this kid, the young guy. I'm kind of like the Andy Warhol, sort of like a vampire. Like, once you're done, and if I can find a young gun that's going to give me more inspiration, I'm gonna go with them. So that's kind of what happened. I got tired of Steve's fuddy-duddiness, and I needed to find young blood. And this dude was perfect because he was young and like, you need to learn the internet, man. That's what the future is. And I'm like, okay. And he was right. So, that was good. But yeah, Harmony, that's why that happened, because I was listening to the radio again, literally. And I just was like, couldn't believe the music of the time frame, which was like, think of Y2K music out there at that time. And that's what I was like, wow, what is all this now? Who is that?
Let's go on to your solo stuff now, because
Okay.
I think that's kind of like the focus of what you want to be.
Yes,
Focusing
that's
on
what
the
I
stuff.
am. What I've been for 22 years now. Yeah. I have to think, I can't remember, but yeah, 22 years.
So like, I married the devil
Yes.
and everything. Yeah. Like, that was your first one.
Yes.
How did you feel?
It was kind of weird, okay, because I married the devil. Now, the person on the cover, have you seen the cover?
Yes, I'm looking at it right now.
So, okay, so there's the dude with red hair. That's Dalton. That's my gay friend. That's the guy that we fell in love with each other, if that makes any sense, in our brains. Now, he's 18 years younger than me, and of course he's gay. But we fell in love with. He's actually was a certified genius, like a person that actually had a genius IQ at 15. So and he's very creative. He was really great writer. He's dead. He died last year, actually, of alcoholism, actually. But anyway, he and I were friends, and we lived together on and off for years. And we had our ups and downs. But the thing about that is, he is the devil. I always thought, we used to say that we were going to get married so that we would have better benefits. Like, a lot of gay people do that. They'll marry their best girlfriend, and then they don't really, it's a platonic thing. We thought we'd be like Oscar Wilde or something, and he could be Oscar Wilde and I could be his wife. And then of course that never happened, thank goodness. But I'm just saying, we have these stupid notions. And so I have this obsession with Robert Johnson and Skip James and the Devil at the Crossroads. Okay. Except that I always like the idea of feminizing it. So my idea is, instead of you going to the crossroads and you're going to wait for the devil comes in the white hat, in the white outfit, and you hand him your guitar and he tunes it, he gives it to you, and then you're a virtuoso. Fine. But what if you're a woman? I think that instead of tuning the guitar, he'd want to marry you. So that's where that idea came from. And I thought, I'm going to be the female Robert Johnson now. And so that's why on the cover, he used my dog, Duder, our dog, me and my mom, the one that just died 2 years ago, poor Duder. And but he was like the hound in hell. And of course, all the graphics, again, were done by Dalton. Like, he took it, he put the flames on my guitar, and we went out to the desert and you used the headlights and shot that. And I said, I want you to wear a red wig. I want you to be the devil. And we got him a white outfit. And I said, we're going to do the cover like that. And that's where all that came from. And then the song itself, the lyrics tell you, I'm just like going to the crossroads, except I'm going to marry him. And there's one of the saints in Catholicism, which I'm not Catholic, but my mom went to Catholic school, is that if you marry Jesus, you get his foreskin as your wedding ring. And I thought that was super creepy. So I used it as, and I wear his foreskin ring, and, there's a lot of like iconography in there. So yeah, but that's why that happened, is like, I'm literally saying that he's the devil and I'd marry the devil. And that's kind of what happened.
I think that a foreskin wedding ring just sounds horrible.
Oh, it is, but that's Catholicism for it. It's super creepy, all that iconography and weird shit like that. But I just thought it was a great idea to use for a song, and I kept it in my head until I could use it. And as you know, with the new album, it plays into it again. I'm very obsessed with the devil and devilly things. So is my father. So it sort of kind of continues on, as you know, even in this new record. So what are you going to do?
How do you feel this one, I'd Marry the Devil, differs from the last ND album?
Well, for one thing, I was completely at that point listening to no but whole Babes in Toyland, the Gits, all girls. That's the other thing. Phil would never let me listen to girls. He didn't like it. He thought it was stupid. And then Steve and I just kind of didn't. It was just whatever. But when I got away from men, I found a friend that turned me on to riot girl music. And I was like, what's this Sleater Kenny? What's this? What's all this? And I was like, wow, what is this? So then that got me into listening to more women. And then that's where that came from. Then it was like I was writing from a completely feminine point of view. And it was like, okay, now I'm really writing from a feminine point of view. Like Deadly Beauty is about the night I was raped. Like I was able to be real. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, now I'm going to be real. I can actually write what I want to say instead of metaphorically hiding it in Nuclear Death lyrics. I said, now I can be open. Or like Romeo and Romeo. I wrote that for my friend because, I thought, why can't there be a Romeo and Romeo? Why does it have to be Romeo and Juliet? My gay friends want something else. So I wrote Romeo and Romeo for my friend. I thought it'd be kind of cool that they go off together and there's two gay guys. So that was kind of my newly found, open mind. It's a very open mind record. It's like, I'm going to do all this stuff that I never got to do before because the men that I lived with were sort of sexist and kept me down from being more open about everything and anything. Thinking about it as I go through, like the way the album was. But yeah, and like Magnet, I wrote that for my friend Dalton again. Like we were so in love with each other, even though we couldn't be together. And so that song Magnet is about him because he was very quiet. He never talked. He talked, but then he wouldn't talk, and he was it'd be kind of annoying. And so when I wrote Magnet, it was kind of like, baby's 80, baby won't scream and shout, because he was born in the 80s. And it seemed like all the guys or the people I knew that were born in the 80s, like 83, 84, they kind of don't know how to like communicate properly. And so that's kind of why I wrote that line, stuff like that. My head was just exploding with all these ideas that I didn't know were in me. And then suddenly there they were in me. And I was like, oh my God, I have all this stuff to say, and it was just cool. It was empowering, absolutely empowering. And again, see, here we go again, right before MySpace. So again, no way to distribute these CDs. I had no way. I didn't even know anybody knew who I was anymore. I didn't know that for a long time until he happened upon a site and said, did you know Nuclear Death is on the internet? And I said, what? No. And he's like, yeah, there's a site that it's a Wikipedia with you in it. And I said, are you fucking serious? I had no idea. I thought nobody cares. That's what I'm saying. It was just weird. I told you, Steve was like, nobody cares. And I just believed him. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and then this friend of mine is like, no, man, you're on the internet. People know who you are. I was like, oh, it's fucking bullshit. But he was right. I was like, oh, okay. And, and then I thought, oh, but see, I had no way to distribute it or anything. I still have some copies left of that album, actually. And I'd actually like to re-release it properly. But I did that all on my 4-track. I made that on my Tascam 4-track all by myself. And that was, except for my friend played drums. But yeah, it's one of those again. And I made sure I had a girl play drums, even though I didn't need to. I mean, it was just, she happened to be a girl, but that was another thing, as a girl drummer.
wanna be the best. Nothing's gonna stand in my way. I'll do anything it takes to just give me
Let's go on to the next one. When the Sun Dies. It's the first one that has a real kind of bluesy sound to it. How did that kind of like creep into the actual record? The whole kind of like blues thing.
I think it's weird because I think I've always been influenced by blues and jazz anyway. But that record, when I made that, I was such a mess that I think I had, if you want to be honest, I had the blues. It was I had lost some cats in that I had actually had to put in the freezer until I could find somebody to help me dig a grave. That's why there's that line, 2 cats in the freezer. My dad had died. I was a drug addict again. I had gotten back into drugs really bad. And this time I'm by myself doing it too. I mean, as far as like I was alone doing stupid shit. And and so when I wrote these songs, I was just completely a mess. And then I moved into my mom's house and I was still a drug addict. I was a crystal meth addict. I had been a heroin addict actually for a couple of years beforehand, for 5 years. And then I got off heroin. I never shot up. I used to smoke it, but I found out you could die smoking it too. But anyway, I quit cold turkey. I pulled a Miles Davis. I locked myself in my apartment. I stopped doing it and I went through withdrawal all on my own. And then I got onto crystal meth again to get up. And I ended up being on it when I moved into my mom's house. And my mom, because I had moved in, I could watch her dog. And she went to visit my brother in New Orleans over spring break because she was a professor of art history. So she had spring break off. And my dad visited me. I am not kidding you. I was on drugs, recording the song Everybody Goes Away. And I was in our gallery and my dad was sitting in a chair with his legs crossed, smoking a cigarette, which he never smoked in the house, but he did smoke. And he looked at me and he said, "I am so disappointed." And then he vanished. And the very next day I quit and I never looked back and I've never done drugs since. But that was, he literally visited me. And it was like, he was so, I mean, my dad's, that's the way, he never yelled at me or anything. He never spanked me, nothing. He would just look at me and go, "I'm so disappointed." And it would be horrible. And so, yeah, when I wrote that album, I wrote it and recorded it in my house on my 4-track. And then I had Jesse add the drums. And that's why the song Anymore, when I say, I'm not going to hold you hostage anymore, I have been watching Intervention a lot and learning that you can hold people hostage by giving excuses as to why you're an addict. And that's what I was doing to my mom. And so I wrote that, even though she didn't know that I was on drugs, because I'm up and it doesn't seem like, it didn't seem any different to her. But that's why I said, I won't hold you hostage anymore, because I realized I was holding her hostage. She would give me money and then I would go buy drugs. I would pawn something and she would go get it out for me, not knowing why I was doing it. And then I finally came clean and told her what I was doing, but it's after I quit. One night I just went over to my friend David's, who we were playing music together, and I said, I need to go bury my pipe in the desert and I never want to look at it again. And he's like, do it. And then that was it. So that album was very, and then the title is Dalton's poem, because I told you he was a writer. And he wrote a poem called When the Sun Dies. And I thought it was a cool title. So that's where that title came from. And I felt like my own son had died. I mean, I was literally soulless as a drug addict. So, and again, I quit myself and I never went back. And that was it. But that's what that album's about. It's about death and just addiction and pain. And then revelation. Because like I said, Eddie Moore is kind of a lift up. And I've been listening to the White Stripes a lot. And I really like the simplicity of Jack White and Meg White's music at that time. So that's why I kept it really simple, that song. And I also, when I wrote that EP, I chose to only do it with 4 chords. I said, I'm going to use 4 or 5 chords and that's it for the whole album. And just write songs around those chords. And that's where those songs came from. And I was pissed off at myself I kept using my father's death as the reason. And then I told you, I was watching Intervention. It was really perfect because that's an excuse. And I realized, you know what? My dad's been dead for at that time, he'd been dead for enough years to where you can't keep using that excuse. It's like you're doing drugs because you're doing them. That's why. Because you're being a fucking dumb fuck. And I knew that. So I was like, quit pretending that it's because your dear old dad is dead. Get over it. And as far as that's concerned, because that's not true. You're doing it because you want to do drugs. And then I just quit. Like I said, I gave myself my own intervention. And I went and buried my pipe out in the desert. And I said goodbye and said, fuck you, this is stupid. And I want to live long, and fuck you. And then that was it. Because I'm also terrified of death. I'm absolutely afraid of dying at any point. I'm so afraid. I did clean up the day after I finished it. I never looked back. I called all my friends that were drug addicts. I told them, I'm sorry, I can't see you anymore. I'm going to clean up. And that was it.
That actually answers my other question that I was just about to ask you. How did you feel after you recorded the album?
I felt like that album saved my life. But my dad visiting me, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of my dad, but I look like my dad. And when I look in the mirror, I see him every day. I talk to him all the time. There's so many ashes of him in my bedroom. I've got 4 boxes of ashes. That's the song Ashes. That's what that's about on the new album. And because I literally have a bunch of ashes, my dad. And yeah, so he, being Mexican, he kind of do that kind of stuff. But he told me, it was like he looked at me and see, my dad is older than my mom by 17 years. So he never did drugs. When he was in Vietnam, he didn't smoke pot. He was old. So he didn't do any drug. He didn't do anything like that. So he just did not get it. He thinks it's stupid. So to know that his daughter's doing it because of him dying, he would be horrified. And then he went and visited me. I thought, because it was so scary. You could see through him. It's just like when you say you see spirits, it's true. It's like you see through him. He's just sitting there. He said, it was just like, I looked at him, I thought, oh my God, he can see me doing drugs. It was so like, and my mom's in New Orleans for the week and I was haunted. I couldn't sleep. It was so scary, but it was the best thing that ever happened.
And just for the record, you're clean until this day?
Yep. Yeah. I haven't ever, that's what I mean. I don't know how I ever did this. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. I have panic disorders. So I was on medication though, that made it where I was shut down. I think that helped because I couldn't even imagine. I have been on meds since I quit meds in 2014. Yeah. And never looked back because they were causing me not to be able to create anymore. And I can tell you right now, I don't even know how I ever did drugs. I'm terrified of them. Like, I don't even want to take an aspirin. So I think it's great. It's for me, it's not, I like drinking, but I also drink responsibly. Obviously, I kind of have to, but it's New Orleans, man. It's, I wouldn't move here if I wasn't going to be drinking. So it's like, I would do drugs for I'm allowed to do it 2 days in a row. And then I would stop and I would eat and sleep. And, I always had these rituals, like you can't do drugs 3 days in a row and things like this. I was never, that's why I have all my teeth. My friends don't even have teeth. The ones that used to do, they never lost out of fucking teeth, dude. They were just doing them and doing them and doing them. But I always like my teeth, and I would drink water, which is another thing people don't do. They'll hydrate. I don't know, just there were always these things that I would make sure I would do. Like when I was doing meth, I would eat. Even though you're not supposed, people don't eat on it. I did. I kept feeding my body. body, stuff like that. So I think I lucked out, and I never got above a $20 a day habit on either of those drugs. See, that's the other thing. I was like, it can't be over $20. Or that means I'm an addict. I mean, it was weird. So maybe that brain, that saved me from never getting to that level of like, never, like where you can't come back. 1, 2, 3.
And I won't hold you hostage anymore. And I won't cut so deep anymore. And I won't cry to see you anymore. And I won't sit in parking lots waiting for school. And I won't hold your hostage anymore. And I won't hold you hostage anymore. And I won't cut so deep anymore. And I won't sit in parking lots waiting for school. Yeah, and I won't try to see you anymore. And I won't hold you hostage anymore. And I won't hold you hostage anymore. And I won't cut so deep anymore. And I won't cry to see you anymore. And I won't sit in parking lots waiting for school. And I won't hold your hostage anymore.
Let's go into the next one. Songs of silent reflux. I recently told someone who was asking about scary discordant music to actually check this album out, particularly for the track The Fluttering.
It's a real story, you know, the flood, you know, that thankfully it doesn't happen anymore. But before I was diagnosed with silent reflux, see, I thought my heart was here because I'm an idiot and never looked at my Grey's Anatomy book. But anyway, right here is your upper sphincter. And when you have silent reflux or any reflux, it goes like this. Well, I didn't know that. And I thought it was my heart. And I think, oh my God, what's going on? So it feels like a fluttering. So I thought my heart was fluttering. And I went to a doctor finally and got diagnosed. And he said, first of all, your heart's not over there. It's over here. And that is your sphincter bringing acid up into your throat. But anyway, that's the feeling, the fluttering. I wanted to definitely put some nuclear death in there. I wanted to show people that, yes, I can still play fast. So that's why I did that. I wrote the guitar chords that way. I thought, oh, you don't think I can play fast anymore, anybody? I still can. I still can do the quintessential thing. So wait a minute. I'm going to plug you in. But yeah, I just want to make sure people realized it didn't really matter. I mean, I don't know who was going to realize anything, but I'm just saying that the idea was for me to kind of prove to myself that I haven't lost my picking style just because I don't do it all the time anymore. And I didn't lose it at all. It had no problem doing it as soon as I got, you know, with that album or whatever, that piece, it was, I hadn't sang for 8 months because I was diagnosed with silent reflux and I couldn't sing because my vocal cords were burned. And that's what silent reflux did. 25 years of acid going up your throat and you don't know it, it burns your vocal cords up. So I quit singing and I also lost 65 pounds, as you know, because you've seen pictures from like a year ago and or 2 years ago. And I was 160 pounds, which I didn't want to be. And then within 8 years or 8 months, I got my body of my dreams and I weigh 113. And so the reason I did those songs is because I had one song left to do on the album, and that was Diamond Heart. It's the only song I haven't sung yet. And I was like, God damn it, I almost finished my record and I have to wait. And so once I started healing, I finally thought, you know, maybe I should just I'm going to go in my studio and just make stuff up for fun, just to feel creative. And so the first one I wrote was This Mouse, because I had to sing in a quieter register because I was afraid I would hurt my vocal cords. So I did it in a choir register. But anyway, that's the reason that any of the songs happened. I wasn't even planning on putting it out or anything. But the songs came out so good after I got done recording. I thought, well, these are kind of cool. I should just put them in and call them songs of silent reflux, because that's what they are. Or like barium dreams. I had this thing called a barium swallow to see if my body was working. Oh, it's a horrible thing you swallow. It was awful. So I thought, I got to write a song about that, you know, that kind of thing. And they just came like that. Like they just came one after the other. And I thought, well, this is cool. And then the photo is the first day of starving. Like it was the first day that I couldn't eat because I was so afraid that if I ate, it feels like you have a lump in your throat and it feels like you can't swallow it. It's terrifying. And so I was afraid to chew and swallow. And, you know, I had to figure out a diet. I was on a liquid diet for 8 years or 8 months. It was horrible. And, but that's why, you know, that happened. And it did heal my vocal cords. So whatever. But which is good. And then I finally finished the album. That's why Diamond Heart to me is a stronger song vocally, because my vocal cords were brand new by the time I did that song. And of course, all these songs on that album were done in order. I didn't change it. So Pink Moon was the first one I recorded. Diamond Heart's the last one. Everything's exactly the order that I did them in.
Use the hash to heal your wounds.
This actually brings us to Bare Bones, which is your magnum opus.
I'm so excited. I just actually contacted Christian from Dead Ascension today. I hope he gets back to me to tell me, because the CD should be out this month and the vinyl for it, because that's what they're going to be on, is his record label. So I'm waiting for that to happen.
What are your personal highlights from that album?
First, I love the fact that I did it, because I want to be like PJ Harvey. Like when she wrote the album Her, or Her, she did everything herself except the drums. And I'd always thought, man, sometime I want to make a record where I do everything on my own, but I wasn't good enough yet. I mean, and I don't mean musically, I mean engineer wise. And finally, I don't know, I guess I just felt 2 years ago, we were going to buy the house here. We were looking for a house here. And Arizona is horrible in the summertime. It's like being snowed in the wintertime. Like I don't go outside. It's terrifying. It's horrible. So I thought, I'm going to lock myself in the house and make the record. So I bought the better mic. My friend gave me my first big girl microphone for the studio and all this, very expensive, but he sold it to me very cheap. And I just locked myself in there. And then the other thing was, like, I would go up every Saturday and write a song. The idea was to go up, write the song, or I shouldn't say write it, go up, record it, come back down.
Yeah.
But there'd be some weeks, because as you know, I have panic disorder. Sometimes, I don't know, dude, the idea of doing it was so overwhelming. Like I would give myself a panic attack while I was working. Like it's all cataloged in my YouTube, because I filmed everything I did in the studio and put it up there. So there's all the raw vocals where you can't hear music. There's me having a panic attack. Let's see, during Where Is My Lover? I don't know if this is a highlight, but it's a trip. It's very hard. It doesn't sound hard at all, but the guitar is so consistent that if you fuck up one time, you got to go all the way back and start again, because it's got to be dun, 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 dun. It's got to be,
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wasn't having too good a luck that Saturday, and I had a panic attack. And I was out of my mind. So I got out of the studio. I was like, I finally calmed down. And then I was playing it too fast. I was like, this is too fast. You're freaking out. You're having a panic attack. And so yeah, eventually I went back in and I calmed down. And then I thought, this isn't going to happen. It just isn't. But I'm going to try to make it happen as best I can. And then I did it again, because I didn't use any click tracks or anything. I used my internal rhythm. So nothing, I wasn't listening to a metronome or anything. I just figured I'm going to do it this way. But that's stuff like that, where it got done and I was like, yay, I finished it. Whew. Because the vocals are easy for me. That's not the part that's hard. The hard part is any instrumentation, because guitar is my talent. Singing is a gift. I don't have to think about it. The guitar, though, that I have to think. And that's the part that was giving me anxiety. And then whatever. But yeah, or like if you listen to What Did the Beautiful People Eat, which originally when I wrote it, I was overweight and so sick and tired of being fat and not understanding why, that I wrote that. And then it actually has a guitar part. And if you listen, you can hear it. You can hear where I kind of took it out, but it's repetitive and I couldn't get it right. So finally, I'm like, I'm so fucking sick of this. I can't see. I don't see how I'm going to do this. And I didn't want to like make a guitar part and then loop it and all this shit. So finally, I went to bed and I woke up the next day and I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to do a beatbox and I'll take the guitar out completely. And it'll sound like somebody's chomping, like, and that's where that came from. I just thought, that's perfect. It's like eating. And it's going to be really, really annoying, because the idea of that song is to be like it is when you have an eating disorder, which I've had for years on and off, where you just like, it's like consistent, like, why am I so gross? And so, I don't have it now, but I'm saying for years, I have body problems and whatever. And so, yeah, when I did that, I took the guitar out and I was like, oh, there we go. Now I don't have to care if the guitar is wrong anymore, because it ain't on there anymore. Cutting corners. I'm not going to lie. I just said, fuck it. I tried so hard. Like I can play it live, but when I get into my studio, I get anxious that it's on there forever.
How would you describe the sound of Bare Bones?
I would say, if I'm not going to be all cute and be like visceral, raw, or any bullshit like that, if I need to tell someone musically, I tell people it's blues, because that's what it is. It's grief. It's an acoustic blues record. It has a lot of, I mean, it's got gospel on there, obviously. Diamond Heart is completely rooted in gospel. That's what the whole point of this song is. Because I saw a marquee down the street in Arizona when I was driving at a church, and it said Jesus's heart is a diamond. And I thought, what the fuck does that mean? But I thought, my heart is a diamond. Okay. And then I just left it in my head for later. And then suddenly that song happened. And I liked it because the song Formaldehyde Heart from I Marry the Devil is about me not being loved, because I haven't, after Steve, I haven't had a boyfriend in 22 years, sadly. So, and I know it's not my choice, I just, whatever. But anyway, so I always feel like it's encased in formaldehyde, like nobody wants me. And the Diamond Heart's the same. My heart is a diamond, it cannot be broken. My heart is a diamond, it cannot be loved. I thought, this is cool. It's a sad song, but then kind of not. So yeah. But I mean, to me, if I'm going to describe it, I'd be like, it's a blues. To me, it's blues. It's neo blues, if you want to get all like, genreized with it. Yeah, because that's how I feel anyway.
And you're playing it live soon as well?
So yeah, now that the live scenes are back, that's the next key. I'm starting to compile the kind of set. I mean, basically what I really want to do is just play as much of the album live as possible. And then probably add a couple covers in there too, that I've worked on. One would be Amy Winehouse, Wake Up Alone. The other one would be Sugar in My Bowl, the Nina Simone version. What's another cover I do? I'm starting to learn a Jeff Buckley song right now. Just maybe a sprinkle with some covers, a little bit, just some things that I like. But for the most part, just play bare bones live as much of it as I can. Like I could do like Suicide and Fentanyl and use a guitar instead of using the piano loop that I made. Or I could find someone to use my computer, or do it with the computer. Just, you know what I mean? There's that idea. I don't know yet. I want to make it as easy as possible. So I figure I'll just sit there with my acoustic electric, my Ovation, and just sing and play live and just do it. Because the difference is it's going to sound so much better now, because my voice is a lot better than it was. I mean, it's great on the record, but it's even better now because it had the 8 months of healing. So I do all kinds of stuff with my voice that I wasn't doing on the record that I can do now with those songs. It's going to make them even better live. So, but yeah, that's the idea. Play live here. Definitely. I think the first thing I'm going to do is do some live streaming, because that seems easier for me at first, to just kind of transition to playing live, I mean, nothing that people pay for. I mean, just do it like I've always done. And then, I'm going to sit down, play guitar, sing some songs, and then transition into it. But I also am waiting to get these damn CDs so that I can fucking go out and go, here's me. So I have no problem trying to get in a club here or anything, but I do need something to show them. So that's what I want to do. Bring it and go, here you go. Here's what I do. Book me, and let's go.
My favorite songs on this album are Lay You Down in the Soil and Pink Moon.
Lay You Down in the Soil is about my daughter right there, Footsie. She's 6 years old. And Footsie and I had a really weird relationship. She was one of my kitties that I moved with. She was a kitten when I moved in with my mom. And she was the one I kept. I had 4 kittens when I moved in with my mom, along with my 13 cats. And I kept her. And she and I had this really special bond that I've never had with another cat. And one night I was hanging out with her, and she went into another room. I heard this really weird sound, and I went running in there, and her eyes were rolling back in her head, and she was all like having like a seizure or something. I was like, oh my God. We think she had a brain aneurysm, but anyway, I didn't know what to do. And she was like, so I started giving her mouth to mouth. That's why I said your little lungs, they took my breath from me, because I was trying to give her mouth to mouth. And she was little. And that's what it's about. It's about Footsie. It's just about me and me thinking I was going to buy an Airstream someday, and she would be the last cat that I would have until I have others. I mean, she was the youngest. So I thought she and I would be going on the open road, because that's a dream I've always had, is just going on the open road and playing dive bars and doing whatever I want. And I mean, this is before I moved to New Orleans, obviously, but yeah, at that time. But that's what it's about. It's just her death. And then, you know, in Arizona, we have something called caliche. And it's really hard to get into our earth because it's clay. It's called caliche. And that's why I say caliche, because we had to have our landscaper dig her grave because it was so hard. You couldn't get in there, and he had to do it for us. And yeah, it was horrible. It was just absolutely the most devastating thing. She died in my arms. So I wrote that. And then Pink Moon is about panic disorder. And it was finally to articulate what it feels like to be me living with panic disorder, where I say I live in my shoulders because I'm always like really tight, and you know, and yeah. So finally, Pink Moon took over, and I wrote the second verse in the studio. A lot of these songs also were written in the studio. The rest of the verses, like Suicide and Fentanyl, everything except for one verse. The first verse I wrote beforehand. Everything else was written in the studio. I'm trying to think of what else, but yeah. Anyway, with those two songs, Pink Floyd. Pink Moon is about me and my panic disorder, and you know, there are pink moons. As you know, the one just passed us not too long ago, the full moon. I think it might have been last full moon. But anyway, they're a good, very special, magical moon, and I was praying to it, to Luna. I was praying to, you know, Luna to help me, because at that time I would have panic disorder. My panic attacks were so bad, I was shaking all over. I couldn't breathe for hours. It's really, really horrible attacks. And so when I have them, I was just begging her, you know, please, I can't even think. I feel like I'm zipped to the floor, you know. And then, yeah, and then lay you down so Footsy's death. That's what that's about. It's about me realizing that, you know, being like, God damn it, you're supposed to be the last cat, and you were supposed to live long and prosper, you know. And 6 years in, just death took her. But that's why that song is so sad. Or that song, I've made grown men cry with that one, because when I have sang it to people, because yeah, I mean, I've done live streams of that song, like back when I lived I did one thing on my YouTube called the Stairwell Sessions. I was having anxiety all day, and my mom was gone at work, and I didn't know what to do. So I sat down and they started playing, and recorded all of it. And yeah, and that's why I called it the Stairwell Sessions.
Cheekbone again. Been tapping Morse on my cheekbone, and then I've been living at my shoulders for years. Dumped on my meds 'cause they killed all my tears. Cheekbone again. I've been tapping Morse code on my cheekbone, and then I've been living at my shoulders for years. Dumped on my meds 'cause it killed all my tears. Big moon, I pray to they house all my fears. Oh, big moon, I pray to thee. Come by my mind, please set me free. Oh, big moon, I pray to thee. Come find my mind, please set me free. I pray to thee. Come by my mind. Oh, please set me free. Oh, big moon, I pray to thee. Come find my love, set me
The only question we had left was what kind of stuff are you listening to at the moment that's really kind of taking your like fancy?
Okay, so I study music and I mean, as you know, like we were talking about this earlier, I do listen for pleasure, in a way, but I still am studying. So right now, I am deeply into the music of Sharon Van Etten. I discovered her through Fiona Apple covering one of her songs for Sharon's year anniversary of her album Epic, which I never heard of her or her music, but Fiona Apple is one of my favorite goddesses of all time. And so I thought, well, she uh, covered Love More, and I thought, okay, and I listened. It was beautiful, and I thought, I go listen to Sharon Van Etten because the very first line is chained to the wall of our room. I thought, oh, she's talking about a relationship. I got to listen to this, and I went listen to her music, and I fell in love with it. Started from her first album, moved on, and so her Lingua Ignata, Kristen Hayter, I absolutely adore her. I would love to sing with her because her and her voice, she and I's voices would blend perfectly because she's also classically trained and she's amazing. And I love her music. Lingua Ignata is just some of the most intense and crazy music I've ever heard in my life. It's fantastic, beautiful composition that she does. So Kristen Hayter, Lingua Ignata, and then Jeff Buckley. I want to choose one boy. Like I haven't been listening to guys in a long time because I've been really deeply listening to women because I hadn't listened to women in a long time or forever. So I really, but I thought I need to get a guy in there, and I chose him, and I'm glad. I kept hearing him on WTL here, the college, where I thought, who is? I keep thinking it's a woman, and it isn't. And then I'm like, oh my God, that's that Jeff Buckley guy again. What the fuck is with this guy? So I looked him up, and I knew he was dead, but I looked him up, and yeah, I fell in love with his work immediately. He's another one who our voices blend perfectly. I mean, it's too bad he's dead. I would have loved to have sang with him because he's another person that my voice blends beautifully with his, and we both have the same range. So that's cool. But yeah, those are my three people. And always, always, always Miles Davis. Like jazz, like Miles Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, you know, the trombone shorty, everybody, like anybody, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, all the time. I have to have jazz at least once a day. I can't live without it. It's my favorite music, always has been, always will be.